Hi friends, today we will talk about an incredible case that happened during the defense of Moscow. How Russians used cannons which remained in the old warehouses, which participated in the battles of the Russian-Turkish War of 1877 and 1878. In September 1941, the battle for Moscow began, which became one of the most dramatic and heroic pages of the Great Patriotic War. The event that we will tell you about today took place during the difficult days of the defense of the capital on the Solnechnogorsk Krasnaya Polyana section. Hitler's offensive on Moscow began on September the 30th. The enemy planned to complete the entire operation on the Eastern Front in 3 to 4 months, but the stubborn resistance of the Red Army near Smolensk delayed the offensive of the Fascist army until the end of autumn. The new order of the German command demanded to capture the capital before the first cold weather, since the army was not prepared to conduct combat operations in winter conditions. The new plans were called Typhoon, and the Army Group Center was involved in the implementation of the plan. The Germans did not have time to capture Moscow before the cold weather. Exhausted, they were forced to retreat, but they had already seen Moscow through binoculars. For the Soviet troops, a new stage of the war was beginning, the path to victory. But in October 1941, the situation near Moscow was very difficult. It required an extraordinary strain of forces and reserves. It was especially difficult in the defense sector of Solnechnogorsk Krasnaya Polyana, where the 16th Army of Konstantin Konstantinovich Rokossovsky, drained of blood by continuous battle, fought. The commander appealed to Georgy Konstantinovich Zhukov with a request to help. The army was in dire need for anti-tank artillery. However, a refusal followed, since the front had no reserves. It came to the Supreme Commander. Stalin also refused, but mentioned that there was a military artillery academy in Moscow with experienced gunners, and ordered a report on a possible solution to the problem within a day. It should be noted that by the time the entire academic staff of the academy had been evacuated to Samarkand, but among the remaining officers and staff of the academy in Moscow there was an old-timer who helped to find a solution. The experienced gunners said that preserved cannons remained in the old warehouses which participated in the battles of the Russian-Turkish War of 1877 and 1878. However, these guns served as museum exhibits and were assigned to the Dzerzhinsky Military Artillery Academy. An old specialist holds where old Howitzers are stored in the Moscow region, where you can get the 6-inch shells necessary for them. These old siege guns were badly worn out. They were used even during the liberation of Bulgaria from the Turkish occupation, and then in the Russian-Japanese War of 1904 and 1905. Having served their time, they were listed for many years on the balance of the Mytishi arsenal, where they were stored in deep reservation. The Tsar's guns turned out to be quite combat-ready. In fact, shooting from them was already unsafe, but they could withstand up to 10 shots. The gun crews were formed from teachers of the academy and students of the 10th grade of the Special Artillery School. In total, several dozen antique cannons were prepared. These guns did not have sights. It was decided to aim them at the target through the barrel and shoot with direct fire. The guns were prepared and sent to the Solnechnogorsk Krasnaya Polyana front section. For convenience, the guns were buried up to the hubs in the ground and began to wait for Hitler's tanks. Several gun crews met the enemy tanks with fire. The gunners let the tanks get to 500–600 meters and opened fire. The actions of ancient guns did not look much like the explosions of modern shells. The Germans initially mistook the explosions of century-old shells for the actions of anti-tank mines. In fact, these mines were very powerful, and a 40-kilogram shell exploding near the tank easily turned it over. Then the Nazis figured out that they were still being hit by cannons. From a direct hit of a shell, the tank's turret was torn off and thrown tens of meters away, and a shell that hit the hull pierced through the tank. German tankers did not expect this. A tank company, 15 tanks, was lost, and the Iron Battalion began to retreat. The change of route also did not bring benefits. They were met by other guns. The enemy's offensive was suspended. While the Nazis were figuring out what kind of new anti-tank weapons the Russians were using, Rokossovsky's army was able to win much-needed days to strengthen the defense. Already on December 5, 1941, Soviet troops went on the offensive and drove the fascists to the west. So during the Great Patriotic War, weapons made by Russian gunsmiths back in the 19th century came in handy. Thank you for watching the video. It was Alec and the Red Army channel. Write your comments and don't forget to put likes.